Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. And today we have a Tier 7 ranked battle for you. Domination mode here on the New Dawn map, starring 6 boats for food in the Shiny Horse, the Tier 7 German battleship. Well, technically it's a battle cruiser, the Scharnhorst. And I know I've already ruffled somebody's feathers. I mean, battleship, battle cruiser, fast battleship, what's the difference? Honestly, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I served in a navy that classified its aircraft carriers as through-deck cruisers because they didn't want to deal with the political fallout of operating aircraft carriers. To be completely fair, the Invincible class weren't really aircraft carriers. I mean, yeah, sure, they operated aircraft. I think they carried something like 7 Sea Harriers. Principally, they were helicopter carriers, because the Royal Navy's role during the Cold War was anti-submarine warfare, and, well, you needed helicopters for that, but I digress. The point is, the Scharnhorst, whether or not you want to label it a fast battleship, a battle cruiser, or a small off-duty Czechoslovakian traffic warden, is a ship that's armed with guns powerful enough to smash any kind of convoy escorts, whether they be destroyers, destroyer escorts, corvettes, whatever you want to call them, even cruisers, and then wreak havoc upon the ships they're escorting. And it's also fast enough to beat a hasty retreat comfortably from any upset battleships that might turn up to try to stop it having its fun. In fact, the only reason the Scharnhorst wasn't able to successfully complete this sort of mission was when it set out to destroy convoy JW55B, a combination of having its own radar knocked out by some very lucky shots from British cruisers, including HMS Belfast, and absolutely atrocious winter weather meant that the Scharnhorst was unable to find its targets, and it was also unable to return fire at the cruisers who had radar contact with it due to the fact that they were using flashless propellant, so it couldn't even see their muzzle flashes. Thanks to the use of their radar, the cruisers were able to keep the Scharnhorst shadowed until the battleships turned up, and, well, so much for the Scharnhorst. But chasing a ship armed with guns like this, if you're in a cruiser, it's a very, very scary proposition. They're not massively huge guns by battleship standards, 283mm, but they're more than good enough for dealing with cruisers, especially if the cruisers insist on giving you broadside to shoot at. Oh, the Zara got away without any citadels that time. He's probably not feeling very lucky, though. Battle's only just started, he's already lost 2/3 of his health. That, however, is a very good use of the Italian cruiser high-speed smoke. Zara's smoked up, gone undetected, but Sink's boats is still spotted, which can only mean, yep, there it is, enemy destroyer. Well, it could have meant enemy submarine as well. There is a sub. You get the idea. Don't know how the Shiratsuyu managed to get himself spotted. Oh yeah, he was shooting, wasn't he? Not sure why he thought that was a good idea, and now he thinks he's safe behind the island. Newsflash, he isn't. That's 5 hits. Okay, there were overpens, battleship shooting at a destroyer, but it's still 5 hits out of 9. The Scharnhorst is pretty accurate, and also has a very fast reload. I think it's something like 26 or 24 seconds, to compensate for the low caliber of the guns. Although Sink's boat seems to have the reload down to 19 seconds. Wow, that's scary. And to be fair to the Shiratsuyu, while he certainly didn't escape without his cheeks getting a damn good clapping, he was at least able to set a fire after his torpedoes had missed, and the Zara's high-speed smoke has now subsided. Which means Sink's boats can now shoot back. However, while nobody's actually managed to sink anything yet, I want to draw your attention to the minimap, in particular Sink's boat's position on it and where the rest of his team are. Now, he doesn't really have an awful lot of choice here, because once he got spotted and engaged by the Zara, the Hyuga, the Shiratsuyu, and potentially also the Mackinson over there, oh hello, well, his course was fairly much set in stone, because he couldn't really turn away to disengage, not without exposing broadside and getting himself clapped. So while on the one hand it's probably fair to say he has overextended just a little bit, although he's going to be able to take some cover behind this island over here as the Zara keeps trying to punish him with a semi-armor piercing, but he has also successfully managed to draw the attention and anger of at least 3 members of the enemy team. And because this is a ranked battle, there are only 7 members of the enemy team to begin with. which means you'd think that between them the other 6 members of his team would be able to quite comfortably deal with the remaining 3 or 4 ships on the enemy team who aren't actively trying to kill Sink's boats here. You'd think that. And you'd be wrong. Although special mention has to be given to the submarine on the team, the Undine, who would almost, very bravely of him by the way, because the submarine on the surface is a horribly vulnerable target, almost managed to flip the central cap at Bravo until the Shiratsu turned up and stopped his fun. But I don't know what the excuse that the other 5 members of his team have. Well, okay, the Asturias is dead, so that's a fairly good excuse, but the rest of them are so far not proven to be an awful lot used to the team alive. And Sink's boats' attempts to avoid getting clapped by the 1 heavy cruiser and 2 battleships shooting at him mean that he is being forced to push further and further away from any kind of backup that the rest of the team would be able to afford him, even if they cared. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, we have a bit of a good news, bad news situation. Good news, he finally sank the Zara. Bad news, the team have just lost their only destroyer, an Akatsuki. And there's a Renown trying to contest that central cap circle at Bravo after the Undine buggered off. Unfortunately for the Renown, the only thing that's going to achieve is ensuring that he's the one who's sunk next. If a submarine couldn't contest that cap circle without getting spotted, a battleship certainly isn't going to be able to do it. The enemy team are now nearly 300 points ahead, with 2 of the 3 cap circles and 3 kills for the price of 1. It's not all bad news, however. The majority of the enemy team appear to have suddenly forgotten that Sink's boat is even here, and while the rest of his team haven't managed to sink anything, they have at least between them managed to reduce a whole bunch of targets on the enemy team to low health. Low enough health that the fires that the Takachi just set on the King George V managed to sink it, so hooray. And yep, that is a high caliber award with 78... Oh, hang on a second, Mackinson, you don't want to be doing that. That's... I mean, you're probably not going to get citadeled, but you're going to get spanked. Is he about to run into that island? I think he's about to run into the island. Does he know the island's there? He's probably getting the collision warning indicator around about now. Oh, he's starting to turn. That could be a good thing. The island in front of him might be a hint that he needs to start turning bow in. I mean, I say a good thing. Good for the Mackinson. Not good for Sink's boats. That'll make it significantly harder for him to actually start to cause damage to the Mackinson with these 283mm guns. But no, he's straightening out again. Alright, it's your funeral. Both of these ships do also, of course, have very impressive secondaries. Although impressive by Tier 7 standards. You know, we're not talking the USS Massachusetts or the Bismarck here or anything. And because the Mackinson is given a big, fat, juicy broadside like this, he's able to get almost all of his secondaries firing, whereas Sink's boats can't. But this battle is not going to be decided by who's able to get most of the secondaries firing. I don't know if the Mackinson knows that the Scharnhorst has torpedoes, but he's about to find out. And he's either going to run into that other island, or, well, his one chance of surviving this was to turn away. Instead, he's turning in. And the only thing that that is going to achieve is that even though he is now turning, because he doesn't have a choice, he's still giving broadside to the Scharnhorst's guns. So that ended fairly predictably. Yes, we have indeed a Geschlachtship gesinkt. He did at least manage to knock out some of the Scharnhorst's guns. In fact, I think he did it twice, but based on how he was sailing the ship, I'm reasonably confident that was more through luck than judgment. Oh, is this a kill? This, please, be a kill. We really need... It's a kill. Yes, we have a Kreuzer gesunken. Unfortunately, yeah. It's, well, there's all kinds of bad news. Let's start with the cap circles. They don't have any. Let's take a look at the scores. They are 200 points behind, and they're going to be 300 points behind before very long. It's 2-on-2, but that is not good news either, because it's 2 battleships against a destroyer and a submarine, and there is 10 minutes of the, nearly 11 minutes of the battle left, but that is really bad news, because when you're in a pair of battleships facing things armed with torpedoes that are both faster and way stealthier than you, and because you're both in targets the size of battleships with 10.5 minutes left. That just means that the Shiratsuyu, who did just get spotted, more on that in a moment, that just means that the Shiratsuyu probably has 5 reloads of its torpedoes to play with. However, we do know one thing about this Shiratsuyu. He does like to shoot at battleships, doesn't he? Not sure. There he goes again. Not sure why. I mean, maybe he's trying to force the Nagato's damage control, so any floods caused by his torpedoes stick. I mean, that's not a bad idea, but it does rely on your remaining unspotted. And because the Shiratsuyu is not spotted, and the Nagato is clearly inside his pretty bad shooting range, and he's scored a couple of torpedo hits, that must mean that the Undyne is shadowing the Nagato on the surface, or at least at periscope depth, and keeping him spotted. This is a very, very good tactic. It does rely on the Shiratsuyu remaining unspotted, however. Oh dear. And because neither Singh's boats nor the Nagato are complete morons, they have of course loaded the high explosive. And it looks like the Shiratsuyu is even inside secondary range of the Nagato. I mean, the Nagato's secondaries aren't anything special, but every little bit helps. Now, he's managed to smoke up, but he was reversing and started stationary, which means he's not going to be moving anywhere very quickly right now, but it looks like he's gotten away with it. Oh dear. So the ball is still very much in the enemy team's court. Why is Singh's boat spotted? That couldn't be the Undyne. He couldn't be spotting Singh's boats from here and the Nagato from over there at the same time. Unless the Shiratsuyu had left its smokescreen and is now beating a hasty retreat. And the Shiratsuyu isn't slow, but it's not as fast as 283mm high explosive. And now we have a Zestoriga synced. And that just leaves the Undyne. And they don't have all 3 cap circles anymore. Now, we haven't seen any torpedoes from the Undyne. Oh, but we now can see the Undyne. He was forced to surface in order to reacquire and ping the Nagato as a target. But here's the Undyne's problem. Well, he's got a couple of problems, actually. First, he does not have an awful lot of battery power left. So he's not going to be able to stay submerged for very long at all. And probably the more significant problem is that while pursuing the Nagato, he is now engaged in a stern chase. And that means he doesn't have any options to maneuver if he wants to give his torpedoes a chance to catch up to that Nagato. And that means that his course is 100% predictable. Which means that's the Kraken unleashed, and now we have an Unterseeboot gesinkt. Honestly, I don't even know how it's possible for a submarine and a Japanese torpedo destroyer with a smokescreen to lose against a pair of battleships, but it clearly must be because you just watched it happen. So, 5 kills out of 7 for Singh's Boats for Food, who I'm sure some of you probably already know is in fact none other than Flambass. Yes, this is the great Flambino himself. His Twitch chat get to choose which name he uses on a regular basis. Plenty more of these sort of shenanigans, which is one of the most unlikely victories I think I've seen in a World of Warships battle this year, but plenty more of these sort of shenanigans if you're interested on his Twitch channel. Link in the video description. In the meantime, hope you enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.